All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to another great episode on your favorite political talk show, The Truth, with Ben Jokes. New Commissioner of Police warns terrorists, other criminals to stay clear of Kogi. Mr. Naziru Kankorifi, the new Commissioner of Police in Kogi, has warned terrorists and other criminals to stay away from the state. The CP gave the warning when he assumed office on Wednesday at the police command headquarters in Lokoja. Kankorifi took over from Mr. Miller Dantawaye, now in Federal Capital Territory, Abuja Command. I am not in Kogi to play, but to police the state to enjoy the deserved peace and security for the attainment of desired development. Now, when security forces make statements like this, I only pity residents of the state or of the community, because they are just talking. When the terrorists now stand up and say, okay, let us try the words that these men have put out, they will come out, attack the citizens, and they will not meet any resistance. At the end of the day, the citizens will suffer. That is the truth of the matter. So it is better armed forces do their work underground. It is results that speak, not just this act of propaganda that we now carry on our heads as a nation. Everybody wants to come on air and talk. At the end of the day, we are lightweight, we are empty inside. Go and do your work, and the results will speak. Now, let us look at the top stories. First is that one coming out of the Nigeria Institute of Public Relations. These people try to apply medicine after death, but it failed. And next is that big one coming out of the Central Bank of Nigeria. This update has caused a national uproar, and it is the proposal to introduce 10,000 naira and 20,000 naira single notes into the Nigerian economy. Before I show you details of these top stories and how Nigerians reacted, let me quickly show you this video. When we speak about insecurity within the FCT, this is what we mean. Watch this video.
The minister of the FCT is also his responsibility to see that the seat of capital is also protected against all these non-state actors. The FCT is the seat of power. It houses the president, the vice president, the senate president, and the speaker on the House of Representatives. Also, the headquarters of the military, Army, Air Force, Navy, the DSS, the headquarters of the National Police, they are all resided in the FCT. So that's to tell you that we don't expect the rate of crime or the spike of crime in the FCT, looking at all that is situated within the FCT. The insecurity issues in the northern part of Nigeria, the northeast, northwest, and some other states bordering FCT also are moving into the FCT because they believe and think that the FCT is a place that should be secured and free of crime. Now, when these people come in here, they come unprepared, right? And when they cannot afford the basic needs of survival, we're talking about food, shelter, clothing. What do you expect? They go into crime. Now, if you recall, I think on your program here, I saw a former Air Commodore that owns a garden, right, where he makes a living from it. We saw where the Department of Development Control went and demolished his park and garden. And we have some other gardens as well where they have also demolished. The owners of this garden have some Nigerians that are also working in these gardens. They make a living out of it, right? So demolishing the gardens and making or having these young able youths that are working, earnestly to see how to make a living, now end up not having anything to do. You see, when you try to see how to address the insecurity issues within the FCT, if you don't do it properly, you are also going to complicate issues, right? Because if these able youths that are out there don't have source of living, they don't have source of income, of course, they will look the other way. I'm not expecting a utopian society or a perfect society where everything should be orderly, all right? We must definitely have deviants, that would think or look the other way to survive. An idle mind is a devil's workshop, right? So since they were engaged somewhere and you have come to disengage them, courtesy of your policy or whatever, at the end of the day, they will make us, those of us that are lawful citizens, not to sleep with our two eyes closed, right? Fortunately, the FCT minister has security, he has convoy, he has police that is protecting him, and other government top functionaries that have security. What about the ordinary citizens that don't have security, right? So what will happen to them? In the last 24 months or so, from January last year, 2024, to this date, as I'm talking to you, about 179 FCT residents have been kidnapped, right? And almost 270 million paid as ransom. So the crime that we experience in the FCT are robbery, one chance, kidnapping, and car theft. Almost on a daily basis, cars are stolen in the FCT.
You saw that. Now, he gave a figure there, or some figures there, about the number of people that have been kidnapped within the FCT in the last couple of months and the ransom that have been paid. Now, that is the information that he has, because I am very sure that the situation is far worse than what he described there. So when we speak about insecurity within the FCT, we are not just doing it to malign anybody. When they talk about some roads that are being constructed, or some flyovers, or some bridges, and we say that, listen, the security of lives and properties of Nigerians is what comes first. This is what we are trying to say. Yes, we may have our grievances about FCT minister, about the last elections, but that is not exactly the reason why we are talking about insecurity within the FCT. We are actually saying that because the FCT is insecure, for God's sake. And then you have a situation whereby they still do certain demolitions, lock up certain places, thereby pushing some Nigerians into joblessness. And when people are jobless, they tend to take to crime. So when we bring up issues like this to the fore, the authorities need to look into it and see what they can do so that they don't destroy this country for everybody. It is not everything that is politics. Personally, I don't like to play politics when it comes to human lives. But obviously, the political class, particularly the APC, are bent on playing politics with whatever. And sadly for Nigerians, this is how it will continue until the status quo changes. Now, let us look at the top stories. First is that one coming out of the Nigeria Institute of Public Relations. They tried to apply medicine after death, but they failed woefully. And next is that one coming out of the CBN, a proposal to have 10,000 naira and 20,000 naira single notes, much to the displeasure of Nigerians. Let's start by taking that update from the Institute of Public Relations. Look at how the papers reported it. Presidential pardon. Tinubu deserves commendation for reversing himself. NIPR. The Nigeria Institute of Public Relations has said Bola Tinubu deserves commendation for reversing himself after realizing he had been misled into including the names of undeserving Nigerians on the list of those recently pardoned. President and Chairman of Council of the NIPR, Dr. Ike Neliaku, said this during the October edition of the NIPR monthly meeting in Abuja on Wednesday. Neliaku said, "It is not wrong to make mistakes. It is wrong when you fail to acknowledge your mistake and then pretend that it is the right thing. That is not reputation. That is not integrity. That is imposition of thoughts." Now, the issue here is not that you cannot make mistakes and correct yourself. Of course, you can do that. But now, you granted presidential pardon and then Nigerians complained. Then you withdrew the list and began to do what you should have done before putting out the list. Because when you want to grant pardon, every single person on the list ought to be scrutinized. Why is this person there? How long has this person stayed there? And why does this person deserve to be pardoned? Those were the things that should have been looked at before the list was released. Those things were not looked at until Nigerians began to complain. And Nigerians have seen this happen repeatedly in the last 2.5 years. So people have every right to say that this is wrong. We should not play psychophancy with everything. This is what Sanusi Lamido was saying yesterday. Some people are just outright psychophants, and it is never good for our nation. Let us not completely destroy this country, because this is the only country we have. And just as Nigerians were yet reacting to this, that proposal given to the Central Bank of Nigeria on 10,000 and 20,000 naira single notes began making the rounds. Look at how the papers reported it. CBN urged to introduce 10,000 naira, 20,000 naira single notes. A new economic review by Quarters Economics has urged the Central Bank of Nigeria to introduce higher value currency notes such as 10,000 naira and 20,000 naira bills to restore the naira's portability and reduce the rising cost of cash transactions. The report, titled "Is Africa's Eagle Stuck or Soaring Back to Life?", warned that the naira's continued depreciation had rendered the 1,000 naira note, the country's highest denomination, practically obsolete in terms of purchasing power. To make the naira portable again, Nigeria can introduce higher value bills, e.g., 10,000 naira or 20,000 naira notes, or redenominate the currency entirely, the report stated. It added that the notion that introducing higher value notes could worsen inflation was a myth unsupported by evidence, explaining that inflation is driven by cost push and demand pull factors, not by currency denomination. Inflation is cost push or demand pull. Neither is related to currency denomination. Instead, countries introduce higher notes to maintain portability after an era of currency depreciation. When the 1,000 naira note was introduced in 2005, it was equivalent to nearly $7 at the official exchange rate. Today, it is worth less than 60 US cents, underscoring the naira's sharp erosion in value. Quarters Economics noted that this depreciation has made everyday transactions burdensome, particularly in the informal sector, where cash remains dominant. Traders, artisans, and rural consumers now carry large amounts of cash for transactions that could easily be done with a few higher value notes. The report also pointed out that the cost of printing, transporting, and securing lower value notes had become prohibitive for the CBN. It argued that the introduction of 10,000 naira and 20,000 naira notes, or a broader redenomination exercise, would improve transaction efficiency, reduce printing costs, and align Nigeria's currency structure with that of other emerging economies. Lies, lies, lies. These are just ideas pushed by people who want to begin packing Nigerian money easily. How can you tell me that when we have 10,000 naira note and 20,000 naira notes, that is when naira will have value? What kind of economics is that? Value is only created by production, developing our capital markets, creating jobs. Those are the things that can create value. Exportation. Those are the things that can give our naira value. Even basic economics will tell you all the things that can improve your currency. When we talk about balance of trade, balance of payment, favorable balance of trade and favorable balance of payment, nobody ever mentions having higher denomination. In fact, higher denomination is synonymous with a dying economy. Places like the US, is it not $100 that is the highest? Other parts of the world, where do you have 10,000, 20,000 single notes? Mr. Yemi Cardoso, what are you trying to do in Nigeria? What are you trying to do to the currency? What kind of idea is this? You organize some people to write a report and submit to you as if it is some people that are suggesting it. We know it is your making. And look at how Nigerians reacted. Let's take some of the tweet reactions. This tweet here by Bamidele Adeni, he says, "In every country I've visited across Europe and Asia, the highest denomination is usually 100. Coins and 1, 5, 10, and 20 polymer notes are still common, while 50s and 100 paper notes are rarely seen. Cashless payments using cards or QR codes are widely encouraged. But here, our own genius Cardoso is saying 10,000 naira notes and 20,000 naira notes is what he wants. And Norbert here says, an easy way to move money, putting millions in your pocket without anyone noticing. During Jonathan's tenure, they wanted to introduce a 5,000 naira note, but people opposed it and said no. But this time around, you want to introduce a 10,000 and 20,000 naira note. Almost everything that was opposed by the APC under Jonathan is now what they are carrying on their heads, even though the Jonathan administration has come out to say that the 5,000 naira note rumor was not true, that they didn't have any plans to do that. And Jamila here says the inflation we think we have now will be nothing compared to what is to come. That is it. And it is Cletus here says this one will just make cash movement worse. Instead of printing bigger notes, they should focus on fixing the economy and strengthening the naira value, not making it easier to carry millions in your pocket. That is it. What people are using $100 to buy, you will now use 1 million naira to buy. Is it not what is happening in places like Zimbabwe? Was that not what was happening in Ghana when we were all laughing at them here? And Are here says, if Cardoso and his employer is serious about revamping the economy, he would make 200 naira note the highest denomination in the country. Bigger currency denomination is a sign of economic collapse and unabated corruption. It's as simple as that. Everybody with a brain who knows anything about economy knows that bigger denomination is a sign of collapse of the economy. How can somebody bring up this kind of idea? But this is the APC. I am not supposed to be surprised because they have come to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And this is why I keep telling Nigerians that if we don't change the APC, then Nigeria will continue to sink. Anyway, make I leave am here. Make I still enter town. Make I go get some ogbonge political news. We will not go like. Why? Because now, because of now I dey here. So don't go away. Don't go.